Alright, Bucka Boy. I simply don't have time for your nonsense this time, so no beginning weird stuff, okay? Oh, recording me already. I see how it is. 1 second. Let's get into it, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Hey kids, welcome back to another exciting episode of No Subs, No Dubs. I'm your host, Casey Kidd, the Kamikaze Kid. Today, honestly, I gotta get into this as quick as possible. Because, here's the thing. I watched this movie, Srimannarayana. If you downloaded this, the words will show up. It's a Indian movie, so it's from India, not Native Americans, in case, like, the PC police are out, or anything like that. I watched a movie from Bollywood, 2012, so a little bit older. So I was thinking, like, some of this doesn't make sense because the technology and stuff, and then it's, 2012, okay. That kind of makes a little more sense. I was thinking for some reason it was recently made, and then had to... that's neither here nor there. If you don't know, this is a podcast called No Subs, No Dubs, and I watch a movie, me, Casey Kidd, the host of this show, I watch a movie without subtitles and without dubs. Ooh, just taking a little IQ water break. Get more intelligent every sip I take. Cut that out, Baka Boy. That was terrible. That was just horrible. Alright, so I watched this movie, Srimannarayana. Srimannarayana. I don't know how to say. There's no point doing it. But basically, I watched it without subtitles and without dubs. And now, since you're listening, this podcast, the point of the podcast is I tell you what happened and my limited understanding of it, and I give the movie a review afterwards. And I'll be honest about it. This is what happened. This was a bizarre movie. Spoiler alert, as best as I can. There's going to be some spoilers in this. Okay, so you've got this Zach Galifianakis kind of like he's not looking like him, but he's looking like him in the main guy. I didn't know what to call him, so I'm just going to call him our guy through this whole thing. He kind of has this, like, in a normal movie that's not Bollywood, he wouldn't be the leading man, I don't think. I'm looking at him like, you'd be Zach Galifianakis if you're in Hollywood. But in Bollywood, for some reason, they're like, you're leading it. He can dance and he can fight, kind of. You'll see, or hear, I guess. Maybe you watch it. It's on Netflix, by the way. If you type in S.I. Manara, if you type that in, you might be able to find it. By the way, I don't have much experience with Bollywood movies. I think the only kind of movie about India I've ever seen is Slumdog Millionaire, which I think is in English, so I can't just put that on here. I feel terrible saying that, but it's true. So this is going to be a cultural shock, to say the least, as well as just a bizarre movie in general. This one was a weird one. It starts out, like, it's so stylized. So it starts out with a stylistic introduction to these bad guys, these three bad players in this. And there's this big guy, the Indian Doc Ock, Dr. Octopus, I was calling him that, and he's pretty hefty. He's a big fella, so he's even bigger. He's not, like, strength-looking big like Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man. If you don't know what that is, he's not powerful looking, he's just looking really hefty, but something about his face brought that to me. I was like, yeah, put metal tentacles on him, and he'll start something bad up in New York. And then you've got this bearded guy who's playing chess. He's bald too. And I kept looking at him like, he looks like he would be taming cats. He would be taming cats in India for people, like the Indian cat from hell fella is what he would be doing. And then there's some hairy guy who looks kind of just like an angry, hairy dude. And he's hairy everywhere. That goes on, and that's pretty quick. It's like, hey, there's three bad guys. Here you go. And then there's a town, like a township gets built up because that was the past, right? So you see the past and you're like, oh, okay, that's in the past. Now there's a town, but it's called a township, whatever that means. And there's some hot reporter asking around about the township, and she's investigating the township. And she's like just one of the reporters, or one of the ladies in this, mind you. And she gets chased away. She gets chased away by some goons, and she gets on like her little crappy scooter moped thingy and drives away, and they're all chasing her, and then she's running, and while she's getting chased, she calls her backup, which is our main dude. This Zach Galifianakis player role is where he should have been, but our guy, he comes in and he's like driving to meet her, right? Because she's getting caught up with a bunch of goons. And there's also another reporter chick who's like one of like the real main reporter. She's following the situation as well. And they all get to this area. So they're chasing her on foot for a while, which I'm watching. I'm like, there's like 8 of you. You should catch her. You know? I, I, I think she's wearing heels too. So I can't imagine she's going that super fast. But they're all chasing her, and not one in the bunch is fast enough to catch her. It makes no sense. It really doesn't. But she pretty much gets away. She gets like to this bus station area, and she's kind of screwed because there's nowhere else to go. So they all kind of come in, and all these goons are gonna start gooning her. You know, like, why are you investigating the township? You shouldn't be over there. But that's when our guy, the hero, comes in, and he tells the ruffians, he tells these goons, he tells them off. He says, don't chase after this lady. She's an investigative reporter, basically. And then he has to fight him. So, he kicks their butt. It's interesting. His fighting style is like overpowered. So he just whoops on him. One guy ends up calling like his boss during it, and he's like, we're getting our asses whooped. And I think our main guy like kicks the phone out of his hand and grabs it in the air, and I'm like, oh, okay. So this isn't like It Man where it's potentially kind of real. Like, this is just dance fighting. I mean, it's still choreographed and stuff, but it's to a point where it's just ridiculous. But then again, I don't know. Maybe this guy, because our guy, like I said, Zach Galifianakis, I'm not going to say his name again. 3 times is too much. If you keep saying it more than that, it'll appear in front of you. Here's the point. And the point is, this guy doesn't look like Ip Man. Ip Man was punching a board and stuff like wood, right? He's punching wood. And this guy looks like he's eating donuts. This guy has a wicked mustache. His hair, he looks like, what were they called in New Vegas? Like the Kings or something? Where they all had their hair up, like they're trying to be Elvis. And his hair's up like that. I'm like, okay, and his mustache. And he's a thick guy. He's a brawler. You think he's gonna be doing a brawler sacrifice or something. Not really. He's not that kind of guy. He's fighting and he's doing some stuff honorable, but he's not honorable enough to be doing a brawler sacrifice. And there's no zombies in this, so he can't do that anyway. But he's not Ip Man. He doesn't look like Mr. Ip. He looks like he should not be floating in the sky kicking someone in the head. But that's what they say. They're like, all right, this guy is doing it. And when I think he says he's or a reporter or a journalist or something, because they all get their butt kicked, and then they're like, who are you? Are you some sort of secret service? I'm a journalist. And it's like, oh, okay. So that's kind of the mood. The mood is, this is a comedy, and at points it is pretty funny. So the phone comes up into the air. That's where I was at, right? The phone comes in the air, and our guy talks to the boss, one of the bosses, right? And that kind of ends with all those guys are down. And the girl, remember the girl from the beginning? Well, she kind of runs away. She was doing some video recording at the township. and then some bad girl. I'm calling her the bad girl. She's the bad other journalist. It's like a rival journalist kind of thing. She folls over, and threatens the girl with a knife, and is like, give me that video chip. So she gets the video chip and goes away. And then our guy catches the bad journalist and is like, you took out a knife. And they're talking, and it's stylized this whole time, and they're kind of like arguing at each other. And she puts the chip. She's like, this video chip that you're so upset about, I'm putting it in my bra. And she's like, he's not going to touch my chest and grab it. Well, he does. He goes in and grabs the chip and walks away. And then we cut to a music video, and it's all like popping with colors and stuff, and it's very weird. I don't know what it's like, dancing and music and singing. It becomes like a music video for 3 minutes. And the funny thing is, like, she must have went music video mode after he reached down her shirt as the only thing. And there was some tension between them, some sexual tension, right? I've never gone like sexually tense with someone and gone into a music video situation. But I guess it can happen. The more you know. All right, let's move on. We spent way too much time on the beginning of this. Let's get back to the news station. So we're at the news station. There's this news boss, and he's telling a whole team of people about the bad guys and the dirty township and whatnot. And then it kind of goes away. And then it's bad guys talking. And the talking parts are kind of boring because it's just blah, 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 blah. And they're all talking back and forth. Well, you need to get over that. All right. We go to the spiritual scene, and there's these 2 spiritual guys, and they're along with Doc Ock. Now, he's like the main bad guy I've been following around this time, and he's got these 2 spiritual buds, and they have some sort of flashback to many years ago where they remember seeing a bird eating meat. And it's like, okay, this is weird. And you know what's also weird? Not weird. You know what's bad? Is the CGI of the bird. They didn't even get a bird. They just got some. This must be one of the Bollywood's like embarrassment movies, because the CGI is so freaking bad. And the bird comes in, and you're like, oh, it's like they just put a little, filament screen thing, whatever, like how Disney used to, like that, and they just put it up on there. It looked terrible, and it ate the meat. And I guess because they're like, you don't need to eat this meat in here. I don't know. But it happened. It was interesting. So Doc Ock's getting all spiritual. And there's this talking situation with him and the other bosses and the hairy guy. The hairy bad guy. He's upset. He doesn't know about our guy. He thinks something bad's going to happen. And we'll see. Our guy gets a handshake from the mayor. Okay, and the next, it's like, it kept cutting. It kept going from here to here to here. This thing felt like it was directed by a 12-year-old who has never gotten ADHD medication but needs it seriously, super badly. And someone wrote like 300 pages for a script and tried to shove them all into 90 pages. And couldn't do it, so went to like 120 or something. It was a long movie, by the way. Let's move on from that, because our guy got a handshake from the mayor. Now he's at home. And this is interesting. There's a family of people. They're all talking. They gather around near the TV. And they're talking in the living room. The news show comes in and shows our guy's dad. And I was like, this guy's a spiritual dude. And our guy's dad is a good guy, so he gets a news segment and everyone's proud of him. And then there's something with our guy looks over and there's some chick there's some lady. And this becomes our guy's lady. And they're having like some sort of discussion. And there's some sort of like weird family thing about our guy needing some chick in his life. Is like, the parents want grandkids. You know this. This is how parents are. So they're like, you two get with it. And the lady, she decides, I'm going to chase our guy into the bedroom for seduction, right? So they chase into a different bedroom, and there's like this whole seduction thing going on, I think. And then it cuts to another music video, which I'm like, all right, this is what happens in Bollywood, or is it just this movie? I don't know. I know there's supposed to be dancing in Bollywood movies. I thought it's supposed to be organic dancing. I didn't think it was supposed to be music videos. Don't worry about the story. We're going to the... Or is the music video like the seductions worked and they're having sex now? I'm sorry. They're snuggling now. I don't know. All I know is I assume the song's all about, snuggling and whatnot. And then it cuts to there's a party in a restaurant and they're eating food. And then two people see him eating, like this girl and this guy. See our guy and his lady now. And this group of people eating. And it's like, okay, nothing relevant there. Nothing's relevant there. I should put that in the notes and not even mention it. But oh well. You're getting it mentioned anyway because I was watching and I was like, why are they eating now? I mean, are they getting married or something? Are they getting hitched? Is this the hitched eating situation? I don't know. And then the next is they're back into their room and our guy is drinking alcohol. So he drinks like 4 big beer bottles. At least that's what we see. He might have drank some more before that. And he passes out on top of his old lady. And there is this guy who was like watching him the whole time. And you'll see this guy later on. He's like this friend of the ladies, right? He's like the ladies, bestie kind of friend thing. And so our guy passes out on the lady. The lady pushes it off and, goes away. And our guy looks at the bestie friend and winks at him like, I did this on purpose so I wouldn't have to be seduced. I wouldn't have to make you watch another music video situation. All right, that ends. And then we're at this honoring conference outside where there's a bunch of... It was a religious conference, I think. I thought it was honoring at first, but now it's just... I'm pretty sure it's religious because they're asking for donation. There's a bunch of government stooges there, and they all get flowers for being there. And our guy's dad is up there. He's the spiritual guy, so he's spiritual guy now. Or dad. Spiritual daddy. Spiritual dad. Maybe not daddy. But spiritual dad gets up there and he starts making a speech and people clap and whatnot. And then the poor guy gives some money and everybody around gives money. And then it cuts to pancakes are being made and our guy's mom's there. Now, she was there beforehand. Now she's here making pancakes and she's all mad about something. And our guy comes in and she's mad and she's talking to him. And then his father comes in and he's giving our hero a nice talking to. He's like, what are you doing? Why don't I have grandkids? I think it was honestly that. It was a discussion of, why aren't you putting a baby in your new lady? And our guy's like, I don't want to do that right now. And then there's some sort of discussion about music videos, and then they're happy at the end of it. Like, oh, you're trying. You get into the music video situation. You get into the dancing, and that's what we want. Now, there's some religious speeches after this, across different countries, or the country or whatever, from the dad, religious dad, right? He's going around, and then there's this investigation of a naughty bar. Now, this is going to sound confusing, because it is. There's a whole situation with reporters and journalists throughout this whole thing. And so there's this bad girl journalist, this rival journalist, right? So our guy is one kind of journalist, and he was working with the cute-looking chick at the beginning. And then the bad journalist, you know, she's the one with the music video going on. Well, she's coming back, and she's investigating a bar. Because a bar's no good. So this is happening. She's there, and then she looks over, and she says, our guy's there. And she's like, uh-oh, I don't want to have another music video situation. This could go bad. You can't be here. So she talks with him and stuff, and then she goes to the bar, and she shows, like, some sort of tattoo and gets in. And when she's in there, she sees there's a bunch of drugs and naughty stuff. It's a drug den bar. You know how it goes. She gets kicked out because she's obviously a journalist, and she's like, trying to record stuff while she's in there, so she gets kicked out, and the goons follow her. Now, the goons see our guy, and they see the bad journalist chick, and the bad journalist chick kind of walks over toward our guy, and the goons see him. And then they walk their own ways because they're like, he whooped our butt once. We're not going to get a whooping again. I learned my lesson the first time, so this is not going to happen a second time. And they all kind of scatter away. Okay, so the journalist lady, she pretty much figures, oh, I need to stick with our guy. This guy is going to make sure I'm safe. So she kind of kicks it with him. So she makes sure she goes with him on his motorcycle, okay? So they go, like, I think they just met, and she's like, I'm with you now. And then she gets on the motorcycle, and they go away, and then she comes over to his house afterwards, and she does the banana seduction technique. And that's where, when ladies, for some reason, they find the fruit, you have bananas right at your house, and they find that fruit, and they go for it, and they eat it in front of you, and you're like, that's just a seduction technique. No one likes bananas without peanut butter or when it's not in a smoothie. But banana straight, no one likes banana straight. That's just, you're trying to get some snuggle time is what you're doing. So she tries the banana technique, then that doesn't work because our guy's just not into it. He's like, I don't want another music video. Honestly, that's what I don't want. And she's like, please, 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 please. She starts begging him. And then she discards the banana. And as he's walking away, so she sits down on the couch, right? She sits down or starts laying down on the couch. He's walking away. He slips on the banana and falls right into her on the couch. And they look at each other, and there's some sexual tension going on in this situation. Well, there's another music video. At this point, there's like a 5-minute long music video, and I'm watching this going, this is a bizarre movie. I could do a podcast just on these music videos alone. I didn't take any notes on them. It's dancing and stuff. That's pretty much it. But I'm just thinking, like, I'm trying to figure it out. Music video is when the sex happens, right? But he didn't have sex with her the first time. He just reached in and grabbed that chip out of her chest. He wasn't sexing her then. So I don't understand why there's another music video. It's bizarre. And 5 minutes is way too long. 2 minutes, that might fit for the sex theory. But I just don't get it. But they wake up together the next day. They're together, and our guy is upset because he's looking over. He's like, why? The seduction. I remember the seduction. I'm upset about this now, so they argue, and she argues because she's like, this has to be official now. I have to move in. We're in a relationship. And he's like, no. And then there's some sort of more seduction stuff going on, and there's fighting. And then, okay, so our guy's lady comes by, but before her bestie comes in to announce himself and whatnot, and then he sees the situation, and he's like, oh, we need to hide her, we need to hide the journalist chick, because this is not going to work out. So they roll her up into the bed, they roll her up into the cushion, basically, and push her against the headboard, and then our guy's lady comes in, and they sit against her, and they're all, like, talking about stuff, and then she goes away, but it's pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, it's so obvious and stupid. So she's hid and whatnot, and then it's over there. There's a scene where the dad and mom go out, and they have adoring followers, and the dad leaves. He leaves to go to this business meeting, and our guy is out shopping with this lady at this point, and she gets kidnapped at a certain point. But before that, let me talk. The dad, he is at this business dude's office. He's getting money because he's been making serious bank with these donations. And it's online banking. It is astounding for 2012. Okay, so it's online banking. And for some reason, the dad spazzes out and passes out, and he's dead in the office. And he had sent our guy a message at the time, but our guy doesn't get the message because he's rushing over with this kidnap situation. But that's not here right now. We're talking about the dad. So the message comes over, but our guy doesn't see it yet. There's a family at the hospital. It cuts like this too. You think, why am I going from here to here to here? because that's how they made the movie. I would love to stick on something. It would have been great if this was one scene in one room again, like last week. But that's not how they did it. They kept cutting over here to over here to over here. Like I said, it was spastic. And the style was just throw everything all at once at you and try to figure it out. So that's what they do. He's dead. The dad's dead like that. And the family's at the hospital just like a couple of minutes afterwards. And the doc's like, he's dead. And I'm like, okay. And then the whole time, because it's still cut, I didn't even get to our guy situation. He's chasing after the whole his lady gets kidnapped. And he's chasing after that. And the police chase after him. And this is all intercut between the dad scenes, by the way. And it seems like, oh, the police are in on it. The township must stand. The township is important. The township has the drugs that fuel the police. I don't know. But the chase was a bait and switch because they get out at a spot eventually. And then our guy pulls over in his vehicle and they throw some bag in his vehicle and run away. And the police come over and pull him over. And they get him in trouble for something. Actually, they probably got him in trouble for beating the crap out of 10 goons earlier. Like breaking a bunch of people's for assault, is what I'm saying. And he just in how many traffic laws did he violate? That's the other thing too. Our guy must have gotten in trouble for those things as well, but he got in trouble for the backpack, and that's the main thing that they're upset. They threw this backpack in his car, and the police were like, "Backpack, not good. You're going to jail." So he goes to jail, but before that, there's like a cut to a funeral pyre scene with his dad, and he's there, but he's not at jail. He's there first. So he sees the body burn, and then he realizes that he has a last text message. It's from his dad, and this message is important. He realizes something, and our guy decides to go to the police because he has to. He's been arrested, even though I guess he could have just left. Or maybe like different places they let you go to a funeral, even if you're supposed to be in jail. So, kind of interesting. I gotta move on from the funeral thing. He's in jail. He gets interrogated. He shushes the interrogator. He's like, shh. And I was like, oh, that was funny. And at the end of it, he tells the interrogator, he's like, I am not a double. He says something about being a double and that he isn't one. And he says it in English. By the way, there's a bit of stuff in here that is in English. So that's interesting. Like some of it's just blatant English. And I'm like, huh. So I guess double is what they say. You know, he's not a clone, which we learn. The bad girl reporter talks to the general manager at the bank. Okay. So the dad dies at the bank. The general manager's there, talking to the bad girl reporter now. And the general manager gives some sort of sob story, right? And then afterwards, he calls the bad guys. He calls 3 bad guys from the beginning and tells that, like, hey, a reporter was here. Now, the general manager was recorded calling the bad guys because naughty reporter was smart enough to record him, okay, without him knowing it. So she tells our guy, and it's night in a mansion. The general manager's there. And our guy shows up, and he shows up in all this Arabian warrior garb, right? It's all in white, too. He smacks the general manager around, and then he shows him the recording of whatever he said. He's like, you said this. Now I'm going to kill you. Who are your bosses first? Or what happened? So what happened first? So the general manager just says everything. He's like, there's Indian Doc Ock, there's Harry Bad Guy, and there's that bald-bearded dude who looks like he works with cats. Okay? And then there's like 2 other mustache men, but I might be one of them. There might be something else. You just have to kill them all, basically. Okay? And here's what happened. Your dad was injected. He didn't just spaz out and die. He was injected with some sort of fluid stuff, some sort of chemical. While he was injected, there was a computer hacker who was getting all the money because we're transferring money, but we needed to keep the money, and there was like 500 million in the account, or some ungodly amount that was donated to this religious order kind of thing. And this is just a huge amount of money, and the hacker gets off after he's done hacking. And it's like one of those things where it's like, no, I kill the hacker. That was terrible, by the way. I should have killed the bus driver. But there's some more talking amongst the bad guys. There's this weird password scene where everyone just kind of makes up a new password, and they all go in a certain order, and they pick a letter, but they don't tell anyone. So they just pick a letter like A, and then the next guy goes up and he just thinks like C, and then someone goes up and says, I'm going to think a number instead of a letter, and just puts an 8 or something. So they put a new password there, so they all have the money, but they can't get to it unless all of them agree to meet up and put in their numbers. Interesting. That's a lot of money. You don't want someone knowing all the password stuff, and then it's all about password stuff after this, basically. Because there's a lot of password discussion and who got which letter and whatnot. So the GM gets killed. Basically, our guy takes a sword and kills him. And the funny thing is they put chalk around the body, and there was blood splatter, right? So they put chalk around the blood splatter and removed the body and kept the blood splatter. I don't know if that's actually what they do, but if that's what they do when they chalk up a body, that's hilarious. Not only is the body here, but we're going to chalk up this big old splatter of blood. So I thought that was funny. And there's dogs that search the area. That's what it is. And then there's more password talk with the bad guys and whatnot. And how to, we need to find out everyone's password letter. I'm like, well, you're all just there. And then just figure out the other letter. It's just one other letter, even if one guy's dead. You can just talk to everybody. Or maybe you should have talked at the beginning of it. But now they're all obsessed with the password. Bad guys try bribing a policeman. So there's a policeman who comes in, and they try bribing him with 2 stacks of cash from a briefcase full of cash. And he's like, I want the briefcase and these. So put 2 stacks of cash back in and take it. And then we're at this jailhouse, right? So our guy's back in the jailhouse, and Doc Ock, he calls the police. Indian Doc Ock calls the police, and he's like, start a jailhouse fight. I want the main guy in this movie to die from a jailhouse fight. Well, he doesn't die. He fights pretty well, and at the end of it, though, he gets hit in the head with a bar from one of them, and it's not good. Then there's some more bad guy time. It's whatever. So I got to skip over some of this stuff, as that meant nothing to me. So we're back to our guy. He's in the hospital. He's hospitalized. And you're like, oh, no, this isn't good. And then it cuts again. It keeps cutting. This time to Doc Ock and his situation. He needs religious guys around. And the bald cat dude is there for some reason. And there's this guy who looks like he's Indian Danny McBride out of nowhere. Or maybe he's our guy the whole time, but for some reason he looks like Danny McBride. He looks like he should be Indian Eastbound and Down. He has a shotgun, and he's got chainmail on, and he blasts some goons. He blows up a propane tank, and he kills everyone. I was like, what? But okay. So he kills this guy by shooting a propane tank, and there's propane tanks everywhere. Reporter girl shows up and reports on the propane tanks, and then there's this music video on a mountain for God knows what reason why, and I just think it's the girl, the reporter chick, is missing our guy. So it's like she misses him, and she thinks of a music video, or maybe she got hot and bothered or something, while all the destruction's around, and she thought, wow, he looked like Danny McBride this time. I'm all hot and bothered. I need to go to a mountain. There's some meeting with the police next, and there's news guys who threaten. There's a threatening scene with a Polaroid. That's not good. And then there's a camera placed to watch our guy, and Doc Ock watches like some sort of pervert, and the other 2 bad guys are watching as well. And our guy he's jail bound. He's not in a good place. He's brought to the police, the main policeman's office to be yelled at. And he gets kind of yelled at for a little bit. Then it cuts again to this mustache guy at a temple. And there's all these goons and all these people, all these like police guys too, protecting this guy. And they're eating at a temple. And then one of the statues stands up and starts walking forward. And they're all freaking out because they're like, no, we believe in this religion, but no, that doesn't happen. That's scary. And our guy takes off like the garb and stuff. He takes off his helmet and he's like, whew, you're not a spirit or a ghost. You're just the guy who's killing everybody. And our guy, he goes full wrestler mode. He gets the password from this dude and he kills him by lifting him up and dropping him on some spikes. This guy's dead, so he's out of it. Then there's a 20-minute race scene to get back to jail. So everyone's like, we gotta catch our guy. We gotta catch the dude. He's out of jail. We gotta catch him and make sure. And our guy is rushing to get back. He's on a motorcycle. It's kind of a neat little scene. He gets in before any sort of issue. And he's planning something with the lady. This will come a little bit later. Don't worry about that. Remember this chase scene. They get back, and he's there, and he's fine. He's not even sweating. So it makes me think, see a double. No, that's not what happens. As what happens is, you get this whole scene where the police snitch calls Doc Ock. He was sneaking around. He was snitching. He calls Indian Doc Ock, and he's like, hey, the main police guy is on our guy's side. He's not our guy, but the our guy. He's on his side, and he's messing stuff up for you. So they take the police guy, knowing he was double-crossing the bad guys, and they take him to the desert, and they kill him. They kill him good. And then there's a news break on the chase, and I guess that's what the lady and our guy were talking about earlier. They're like, we need to make a news break about this. There's a bunch of news stuff, because it's all about the news. Our guy then prays at an altar for his dad because he's not in prison anymore, and the community is all sad. And then we go to Doc Ock's place. Now, here's the two religious people from earlier, the two kind of bozo religious guys. They're supposed to check for landmines, so they go over and they get blown up like a cartoon, and their clothes are all black and stuff. And Doc Ock's laughing about it. Then he goes back and the news is on. I think it's something about him cheating on his wife because it's him and his wife watching it, and it's like a trick, and they have fake photos of a fake family with him kissing some kid who's not really his kid, and there's an argument with his wife, and while that's going, our guy decides to come in, kill him, right? So he has to fight in the forest around this dude's house, and he fights this machete dude in the forest and 10 other goons, and there's landmines, remember? So they're fighting, and they have to watch out for landmines. Well, he kicks one of the goons into a bunch of the other ones, and they all fall down into a landmine and blow up. And then Doc Ock is out there. He basically starts off with, begging, and then he tries to get tricky with it, and he's, trying to steal the gun that our guy has. Our guy's armed this time, and our guy's too smooth for him, so he takes out the bullets before Doc Ock can even use it. And then they do, a little fight, but our guy kind of whoops him a little bit and kicks him off to step on the landmine. And he gets a password, the letter, before something terrible happens, which is an explosion. And I say terrible because the explosion edited was just terrible. It was just not good. Ugh. Whoever did the editing on this, or the CGI, or whatever they did, really just a horrible job.
All right, let's move on.
Our guy goes home, and then there's a cat fight because our guy was interested in his lady, his main lady. She's the one with the bigger nose, by the way. And the naughty journalist chick. There's a thing where his lady is massaging him or drying his head off and massaging him a little bit, and then she goes in the kitchen, and then the naughty journalist comes in and does the same thing, and then they catch each other, and then there's a cat fight kind of situation, and it's okay. And then there's more music, and it's all right, I'm done with music videos by this point. What's next? So, there's this news network guy who meets with our guy, at Doc Ock's place, they find vehicles with drugs in them. And they find landmines, mind you, which is a war crime, I think. That's not good. You don't want to be in that situation where you put landmines out there and then you get caught. And he got caught. But he's dead, so I don't know if he really minds. It probably all comes down on his wife. She's the one that they're gonna charge, right? But basically they see, oh, there's drugs, and this isn't good. So the news is all there reporting on this. Then we see that the cat guy and the hairy guy are still around. That they have decided to take on a new life. That they're in Singapore now. And the cat guy, though, he ends up calling our guy, and he's like, guess where we are? Singapore. You want to have a final fight? So he goes to Singapore on a trip. Cat guy, now, he's in a hotel at Singapore. He drinks some sort of weird abomination of mixed beer and whatnot. And you're like, ugh. And then he goes away, and then our guy finds this hairy guy, the penultimate bad guy boss, on the balcony, just looking kind of evil. And they fight for a bit, and they have a balcony fight, and they also talk passports. Now, they talk passports for a little bit, and then they decide to have a fight. This is a pretty good match. It's a skyscraper match. So they have a fight. I don't know why they talk passports, by the way. They just did for some reason. Something like, our guy doesn't have a passport, and you can't touch me. I've got one. I don't know. But that doesn't really stop him. Now, this is a pretty good fight. And hairy dude does pretty well until our guy does one of those double kicks where you jump up and you kick out with both feet and you surprise your opponent into crapping a brick. So that's pretty much what happened. So after that, he pretty much won pretty quickly. And it's this cool on top of a building fight. And when the hairy guy comes down, our guy realizes the password letter. He's like, okay, I know what it is. And he stomps on his throat. Cut to the cat man. It's a fast cut too. It's our guy talks to the naughty news chick for a second and then goes and drives into a warehouse and the cat man's there. And the cat man has taken our guy's family and has strapped him with bombs. And the family is tracked by the news team though, which the cat man doesn't know. So he thinks he's got the upper hand. But our guy was smart enough to be like, news team, track my family in case they're strapped with bombs or something. It was a lot of foresight. It really was. So they're being tracked. There's a password scene talking back and forth. What is the password? Our guy puts in the password, but he puts it in wrong. He switches the letters. And then he's like having a good time about it. And this is when the cat guy brings out the last of the goons, end up fighting with our guy. And our guy's fighting him pretty good. And it's doing a pretty good match. There's some really interesting things. There's a part where he throws a sword and cuts a guy's arm off, for goodness sakes. There's a part where our guy gets chained around the neck, and he uses like pure strength. He's being held back by 4 people at this time. He gets chained around the neck. He uses his strength, pulls as much as he can downward, and it throws them like they're pins hit by a bowling ball. It's insane. This guy's a beast. So essentially, Catman loses. He tries. Last ditch effort is him trying to flip open his cell phone, push in a bunch of numbers that will set off the bombs. Well, the family's saved. The bombs they clipped that blue wire so the bombs can't even go anyway, and it doesn't work. And our guy gets a message saying family's safe. So when this Indian cat from Hell dude pushes in the numbers, it doesn't really matter anyway. So it's like whatever, the news people save the family, everything's good. Catman loses, the family's safe, and then everyone kind of comes back to the warehouse. And this is when our guy, the Catman, is down like on his knees. Our guy grabs him in front of everyone and throws him into like a piece of equipment. And he gets electrified in front of everyone. It's like, okay. And the ending scene is very interesting. Our guy's thanked. He's around a crowd that cheers. And then it's thank you on the credits. And the credits start going up. And it shows like, hey, here's some of the behind the scenes stuff. And that's it. That's the movie. And this walkthrough of this movie went way too long. The next one I'm going to freeball it because it gets probably cut in half. This is going to be a part 1, part 2. I just say that. I'm just going to say that right now. This is going to be a part 1, part 2, because I can't have an hour-long show. I can't just do it. Baka Boy, we're going to have to cut this randomly in the middle. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pause for a second. Pause. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the end of part 1. Part 2 is going to be put out next week. This episode went a little bit long. Hopefully it was cut in a decent spot and you're not wondering what's going on. And if you are wondering what's going on, you're going to be in the same boat as me, because that's kind of the situation I deal with every single week with these movies. Anyway, have a good time. See you next week. Casey Kidd, the Kamikaze Kid, blown up all over this bitch. Take it away, Baka Boy. Alright, how'd that sound, Baka Boy? We're going to use that. So now we're at the review portion of this, and I'm going to be quite frank with you. Hard 2 out of 5, soft 2 out of 5, it's definitely a 2, for sure. Part of me goes hard 2 out of 5, because there was spots I laughed at, it was entertaining, that seems enough. You know, like, it was entertaining. And then the other part says soft 2 because it was kind of crappy, and it was convoluted, and it was all over the place, and it was stupid, and like I said, and it was like some kid with ADHD directed this, and I can't even with this one. It was bizarre. Out of all the movies I've seen, I think I understand most of them to a certain point a bit better than this. This one, I don't know. I think I got a handle of it near the end. Where I'm like, okay. So essentially, it's rival reporters, some situation with a township, which I guess didn't matter in the end. The people who were in charge of the township, or these mob people, or these bad people in general, were doing bad things like selling drugs in our community. Doing stuff like that. I don't know, but they ended up messing with the wrong journalist, because they wanted his dad's donation money, and the journalist kept getting hit on by women and getting touched and going into music video fantasy worlds where sex is happening when you dance. This is one of the most confusing ones. I'm gonna have to take suggestions for good Bollywood movies. I'm gonna have to do something like that. Watch a good one in a couple weeks or so. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Yeah, I would say the weird spastic camera stuff, the weird editing, all that kind of made me go, it's not that good, but it was entertaining enough for me to be like, it's not horrible dog shit. Dog shit's in the ones. This is definitely a 2. This is anywhere, my mood might change, but I'll give it a hard 2 right now, just because it was entertaining enough, and some of the dancing was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I get it. I don't get why you had 6 or 7 music videos, but I get why you have like a couple of them. That's kind of cool. You just zone out of the movie for a minute and be like, oh, he's dancing with pretty women. Huh. And that's another thing too. Gorgeous women throughout the whole movie, pretty much. Weird looking dudes, gorgeous women. So if that's your thing, weird looking dudes and gorgeous women and weird violence for no reason in music videos and a story that doesn't make sense, you might like this movie. That's all I got. I don't know. I don't think we've got a sponsor this week. Oh, patreon.com/no subs, no dubs if you want to throw $2 this way. $2 a month, and we can possibly keep doing with this show. Twitter.com/no subs, no dubs pod, P-O-D, and you can find out when a new show. We don't really do anything there besides like say, hey, there's a new show on. Go watch, go listen to it. But those are the 2 that we're using right now. Thanks so much for doing this. Try to keep with the triangle plan. That's where you tell 2 people, and they tell 2 people, and they tell 2 people, and everyone else tells 2 people, and you build a triangle of fans who will enjoy the show for time in memoriam. in numerium. Inevitable. Some sort of word like that, meaning forever. That's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna keep with this triangle plan. Maybe tell your rich friends. That might be the wealthy triangle plan. That's what I could call the triangle plan to wealth. Tell your rich friends and have them tell their rich friends and tell them about our Patreon. All right, kids. This is Casey Kidd, the Kamikaze Kid, blowing up all over this bitch. Take it away, Baka Boy. So some of the styling stuff was cool, and some of the cuts were cool, and some of the speed things that they do are neat. But boy, is it disorienting. And luckily, like, they didn't do the shaky camera thing, because then I just couldn't handle it for the fights. You know that Jason Bourne crap, where the camera's all shaky and it's cut up and it just looks terrible. They didn't do that, but it did cut. It was super stylized, and it was cut so much and so frequently in so many scenes. You're like, I don't know what's going on.